Welcome to a new episode of These Go to 11. Let's turn it up. Hey everybody, welcome back to These Go to 11, an unchurchy conversation about everyday faith. Please make sure you like, subscribe, and review on your favorite podcast platform. This not only helps us to get our content out there, but also helps us to find out what you, our faithful listeners, think. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to These Go to 11. Once again, I'm Nathan Bell, and not joining me today is Greg Dutcher. However, I am not alone. I have a friend of mine who's actually been on the podcast before, Mike Callahan. Mike, how you doing, man?
Doing pretty good, Nathan. How are you today?
Doing well. It is good to have you back on. Mike, it has been a minute, like I said, it's been a minute since you and I have gotten together and hung out. But it's also been, I guess 2 minutes since you've been on the podcast. So just for our refreshed audience, tell us a bit about yourself.
Well, again, my name is Michael Callahan. I'm married to my best friend, Cindy. I have 2 children, Kristen and Brandon, 3 grandkids, Peyton, Molly, Dawson. And so I'm really blessed, just to have my family. That's the largest blessing in my life. And along with that, the Lord just allows me to be involved in certain things, most of them that I never wanted to be involved with in the first place. Missions to South Asia, namely India. Nathan, you and I met through teaching, which is something I didn't want to do.
Yeah.
And certain churches that I've served in, in various times of my life have been churches that I thought, well, I'm glad to help you out for the week, but there's no way I would want to be here. And then I'm there for 3 or 4 years, so
yeah,
and that's just kind of how the Lord works in my life. A lot of times, when I know if it's something I really don't want, then it's probably something He's going to give me.
Yeah. Oh man, too funny. Well, we are this is October and we're talking about Missions Month, and one of the reasons why we wanted to get you on, Mike, and talk to you is you have an interesting ministry that you founded, started. You're carrying on with it, and have actually expanded from international into national things that you're doing with that as well. And so you will just kind of dive right in talking about and I can't remember, can we name the country that you specifically go to, or is it the region that you're not allowed to name? Talk to us a little bit about that, because I know the last time we were kind of all out in the open about, all this stuff. The only thing we kind of kept on the down low were some of the pastors that you worked with. But, kind of set me up for the guidelines and parameters of what we can mention today.
Well, since you and I first had the first podcast, with Building Hope, it was things have changed a lot since then in terms of political climate, if you will, and so it's very safe to say that most of our international ministry is located in South Asia.
There you go. Okay.
Yeah, and one of the larger countries in South Asia, for those of you that are familiar with those countries over there. But so that would probably be the best way to approach that topic today.
Okay, that sounds fair enough. And remind our audience, because again, it's been a while, and I'm sure we have some new listeners jumping in. How did you get connected to South Asia?
Well, I had been to Nicaragua on missions in 2000, 2001, and 2002, and had a chance to go back for a 4th time, and I just felt that God wasn't calling me there any longer. And at the time, I was enrolled in seminary studies at Regent University. They're based out of Virginia Beach, but at the time they had a local facility in Arlington, Virginia, and so I did was able to take a lot of my classes in Arlington, Virginia, as well as online. And so um, I was on a subway train, just long story short, getting ready to go to class, and the Lord specifically called me to go to India on this particular ride, and it was something that I knew immediately. Those of us that understand, like when we know when the Lord's talking to us, and
Yeah.
but I tried to get out of it, thinking that I could, thinking I would be very successful.
Pulled the old Jonah card, eh?
I tried, yeah, without a ship. But I tried multiple things, to, oh, you must want me to witness to those that live in the Dakotas, or must want me to witness to the Eastern Indians in the Washington D.C. corridor. I thought the word corridor would throw the Lord off. But I knew all along that I was supposed to go there. I knew in an instant, and I didn't want to go. Honestly, I wanted nothing to do with it. I wasn't even planning on going on missions. It's not that I had anything against this country or the people. It's just I didn't want to go, and I know that my wife shared the same sentiment, and it took us a while to work through that, but in the end, um, there was no denying that it was something that I knew that I had to do. And you may remember the very big tsunami that hit in Indonesia. I think it was December of 2004.
Yeah, that sounds right.
I was supposed to go to India in that February or March, but that affected the area of that country that I was supposed to go into. So it got postponed for a year, but that was providential. As I was able to meet a pastor that I wouldn't have met in 2005, and we're still ministry partners to this day. And so, but all got started on a subway train, and with someone that didn't want to go.
Yeah. No, it's interesting how, that works sometimes, right? Because there are times where it's like, no, I don't have the interest. I don't have that particular calling, and God confirms that, no, that's not what you're supposed to do. And then there are times where it's like, yeah, I don't have that calling, and God's saying, yes, you do. So, yeah.
Well, yeah, fortunately, he gives it to us in small bites. I mean, mine was just one. It was one word. It was India. Yeah, and there was a visual connected to that, kind of like if you put your name Nathan in word art, you can make it look wavy or like a rainbow or that type of thing. And I can just remember in my mind's eye as I was resting my eyes on this subway train, seeing this, and just knowing instantly that I had to go, but I didn't want to. And even when I finally went, I went so with kind of with a heart attitude of, all right, I'm getting this over with. And so once I get back, then that's it. And having no idea it would turn into 17 trips over to South Asia.
Yeah. Wow.
Um, you know, before last trip being right before the pandemic, but
Yeah.
um, we never know.
Yeah.
But interesting experience, though.
Yeah. No. And like you said, I mean, 17 trips, that's absolutely amazing. I remember the last one you took right before COVID, right before the pandemic hit, coming back. And that was our last year teaching together, actually. And it's amazing where God has brought you, and really relatively within a short amount of time too, because you went from, all right, God's calling me to India. I don't want to go, to this ministry that is so focused in the South Asia area. And so talk to us about BHM, Building Hope Ministry.
Well, when I got back from my first missions trip over there, which was in February of 2006, um, I got back knowing that I was either going to go again, or funds that were raised for that initial trip were going to be used for India somehow. Because so many, I was able to raise so much funding that my team leader at the time couldn't believe it. He goes, I can't believe all these funds that are coming in. And I didn't know what to do with the extra funds. And so I just opened up a savings account, and I figured I'm not touching this money. That maybe I go back, so I'll use it then. Or if I never go back, then I'll use it for the India people.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was just, that after that mission trip in 2006, I guess I was just thinking about that trip on and off throughout the whole year, because when I got there, thinking, like I said, that, okay, God, I'm doing this. That's it. I fulfilled what you wanted me to do. I had no idea that my heart would just melt for these people.
Mm.
And so I really longed to go back, and I didn't know when that was going to be. And so in the beginning of 2007, I don't do this as a work. As a matter of fact, I rarely do this, but I thought, at the beginning of the year, let me start off with a fast. And it was going to be a 21-day fast, and I can't remember what it is that I was sacrificing, maybe coffee or chocolate or 2 meals a day or whatever it was. But I
Sure.
know that it was going to be 21 days. And when it got to the 21st or 20th or 21st day, I felt like the Holy Spirit was just urging me to continue to 40. Uh, Now, this was in hindsight, this was a very pivotal moment in the with me and Building Hope Ministries. Because had I just thought, well, had I just said, well, 21 days, no, I don't think I'm going to continue. I don't think this ministry would even exist.
Hmm.
So I ended up continuing up to 40 days. I was journaling through this whole time, and somewhere around day 36, day 37. I felt like in my prayer time that the Holy Spirit just said, I want you to start this ministry. Here's the name, Building Hope Ministries. I want you to build churches, schools, and orphanages.
Hmm.
And I was thinking of my own very poor carpentry skills, and and trying to explain to God that, look, I can't build anything. I can build relationships. I can't build buildings. And in so many conversations, he says, no, you're not the one that's doing the actual building, but I want Building Hope Ministries to be a fundraising organization.
Hmm.
And so when I look back at that time, I think one of the most pivotal moments was me just obeying God and continuing the fast,
Hmm.
because it's hard to say what would have happened. But
Yeah.
and so we then formed as a business in the state of Maryland. I got three people to partner with me. One who is still with us to this day, our treasurer. His name is James.
Nice.
And we formed a business in the state of Maryland, and then once we had that um, finalized, then we were able to file for 501c3 nonprofit status. And one thing led to the next, and the ministry just had its founding that way.
Yeah, that's so amazing to hear. Oftentimes we take for granted, be still and know that I am God, and waiting for that response to come in the midst of asking, right? We're asking him to guide us and show us, and oftentimes we forget to stop and wait and listen for the answer. And so it's neat to hear you talk about, that prompting from the Holy Spirit, that prompting from God to just no, keep going, right? Keep going with this. And I'm going to, take you on a journey that you're never going to forget.
Yeah, pretty much.
So starting out with the Building Hope Ministry, it was the idea that churches, schools, and orphanages, and that was kind of the starting point. And talk to us about the expansion of the ministry and where it's come to internationally. We'll get to the national side of the ministry, because I know you have a national component to it too, a local component. We'll talk about that later on. But just the expansion of the ministry and where God has taken it.
Well, at the time that that the Holy Spirit had given me the name of the ministry, and God showed me what He wanted me to do, I really didn't know how to start this. I didn't know what to do, and I was just thinking of my own natural gifts that God's given me, and one of them is music. I play guitar and play keyboards. I've been in and out of a lot of bands, and me along with 6 others that I invited. I invited them over the house, and I shared the story that I shared with you just now, maybe in a little more detail. But I just told them that, hey, this is what God's calling me to do. I don't know how to even begin this, but are you interested in joining me? Can we form a band, and can we maybe raise funds to build a church, in India? And everyone was on board with that. And we ended up calling this band The Project. And the project, over about from 2007 to 2018, was kind of a revolving door of musicians. I eventually was out of the project, but the project was still continuing. And so if a person joined us for one job, for a fundraising concert at a church, let's say, they were part of the project that day, or some were with us for 10 years. And so we ended up, recording and getting a CD together, and that was enough to raise funds to purchase land where a church would eventually be built. And so that was our first ministry experience. And so the music was something that was very much a part of one of our fundraising arms, for many years. But what I've discovered is, just looking at it from just time and cost effectiveness, I've discovered over the years has been much more effective just talking to people. And just sharing the vision and the mission of Building Hope, and whether it's individuals or pastors at churches, or or companies, people that have their own dry cleaning business, or carpenters, or whoever they are, and that's been very beneficial. But initially it started with building churches, supporting orphans and 2 orphanage homes. And we discovered that through multiple trips that we really couldn't build schools there, but so most of our involvement was with supporting children with education supplies and uniforms and tuition, that type of thing. Because if we built a quote unquote Christian school, it would just be demolished.
Sure. Yeah, talk to us about making inroads with the people, with the pastors, and things like that, because we talk about being on mission, and part of what we're realizing here in America is the culture that we're in. Really, this shouldn't be any surprise to anyone, but it's so radically different from the Christian culture that maybe we grew up with, or the one that we're used to, or really, if you're new to Christ, you see a difference within the church, and there's a different culture over in Asia. And so, talk to us about the building of the relationships and how that gets formed and worked into your ministry, because that must be an intentional piece of what you're doing in order to work with the pastors and work in ministry over there.
It's very important, Nathan. It's right now we have three pastors in that area of the world that we are hands on with, talk to probably weekly, whether it's a phone call or instant messaging or emails. But what has been probably the most effective building block, I guess, to our ministry and their ministries, uniting together, has just been the mission trips that have taken place, and eating meals with them, worshiping with them, conversations we have on the road when they're taking us here and there to see a certain project, or just to go get something to eat, and just learning the culture, understanding that it's not America,
Yeah, yeah,
and certain things that we just think we can just automatically do, um, here, that have to really be taken into heavy consideration, for the sake of those that we are in ministry with. Because if we went in there with a Lone Ranger, attitude and mindset, perhaps we're deported, and never able to return again. But for this particular pastor or their congregation, they could be persecuted even to the point of death.
mm,
And
mm.
so these are things that we have to heavily weigh and consider before we make decisions. And we kind of let them steer that ship. You tell us, where do you need the well? Where can we put this roof on a church? Or what is it we can or can't say on social media? Just
Yeah.
and so having that understanding and appreciation for who they are as a people group, is absolutely critical.
Yeah. Well, and I love how you said, you're going to let them steer the ship because they can navigate better than you the intricacies of the government, the permits, all of those things. And so, you're working with brothers and sisters in Christ who certainly are not afraid to be persecuted for their faith and their belief, but I'm sure don't want to be persecuted unnecessarily. And so being able to step back, which is a hard thing to do, right? I mean, being able to step back and say, okay, what do you need and how can we do this? Talk to me, Mike. Have you ever had a project where you were kind of set on, this is what we want to do and this is where we want to go, and you've gotten over there, and whoever you were working with is like, that sounds great, but we actually should probably do this instead? Talk to us about some of those things.
Yeah, well, I have a couple things I can share. They're kind of the same. One is uh, uh, somewhat similar, um, but is related to, the schools, and thinking that, oh well, this is what God called me to do, to build, um, to construct, churches, schools, and orphanages. So yeah, I mean, initially, almost immediately, maybe in the first or second year, hey, we really want to build a school. You know,
Mm-hmm.
this is what God told us to do, and then they were doing their best to explain to us in this very infant relationship we had, well, we can't do that. And that really gets to, see, we don't understand that here. We just build schools,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
And so, that took a while to get used to. Um, um, it's not so much that I didn't like the idea that we couldn't, more than just gradually understanding why that was a bad idea,
Yeah. Yeah.
and appreciating that. And but then on the other hand, learning ways that we could help with education, that in ways that if you were an atheist or a Hindu or Muslim or Christian, everyone understands you need pencils, your backpacks, you need uniforms. And so these are things that we were able to, over time, slowly realize that let's really focus on things that are pretty well universal, that everyone needs, like food and water. That, I mean, who doesn't need those things?
Right. Right.
And so that was one situation that happened. There was another one that was kind of, it wasn't funny at the time. In hindsight, it was hilarious. But we went over to. They had a situation where there was a church that had already been built, but someone in the distance had, elevated the road, and and then when it rained, then the waters would come towards the church, and that slowly, ruined the foundation of the church. And one thing led to the next, and they basically had to start from the beginning. And so the pastor had told me, on my way over there, he goes, "Hey, I want to take you to this place, and maybe Building Hope can help out, but I at least want you to see." And so you translated, that means, if I get, if we can get him there,
Right.
maybe there's a good chance that, there might be help, right? And so it looked like a war zone. I mean, it looked like something you'd see during World War II or something, where, I mean, just bricks everywhere. And it was just utterly destroyed. I was looking at this thing thinking, oh my goodness. And so but there was a lot of laborers there on this particular day. And the pastor that I have a ongoing relationship with since 2006, um, he said, "Well, look, we're getting ready to go, but can you pray a blessing over the people?" And I'm not sure exactly what I said, but it was just, "Lord, I just pray that, that you would provide the resources for this church to be built." And I do specifically remember saying, "And I look forward to worshiping here next year." And
Hmm.
I really just said that, and just to try to encourage them. So I get in the car, and the pastor, he's with me in the back seat, and someone's driving us, and he put his hand on my shoulder. He goes, "Oh, brother," he says, "thank you so much." I said, "For what?" He goes, "For what you're going to do." I said, "What do you mean?" "You're building the church. Thank you." And I and I said, it was one of those crossroads where, like, do I ruin a relationship here? Because one of the first things I was thinking of was the board of directors back here in the United States. Like, what are they going to think of this? I didn't
Right.
agree to any of this. But I'm also thinking at the same time, well, what do I say? And I thought, well, the Lord will work this out. I just said something like that. And I remember coming back, and we had a board meeting, and I said, "Look, this is what he thinks. What do we do with this?" You know, and it initially turned into something that was $3,000 that we didn't have a penny for, and but they ended up, even building it larger and taller, and all those things. And in the end, we ended up raising funds for maybe $7,500,
Mm.
um, and that was off of of a prayer where I just was asking God to provide for them,
Hmm.
but never once specifically saying that we would do this.
Yeah.
And but that's how it got translated. And so I learned from that to be careful, what I'm saying, but with the same time not really knowing, like, well, even if I'm careful, it could be that something I say, you know, translates to something in their minds totally different.
Yeah.
And so we just sometimes we just got to roll with the punches
Yeah.
with those things.
Well, and it's great how you talked about, the idea of not wanting to ruin that relationship, right? Because it's just ministry in life is done in relationships. And we had a friend of mine on last week talking about a mission trip to the Philippines, or being in the Philippines, and he talks about the same type of thing where you've got to be careful the way you phrase things and word things, because everything's so community and so relational that people are going to hold you to what you say, and in your mind you might not be thinking you're saying anything, but you could be speaking volumes. uh, so
Yeah.
so I love your heart and passion and compassion for wanting to maintain and build up those relationships and keep those things going. And then it's just so real. You get back to the United States and it's like, okay, guys, here's the situation. What are we going to do?
Yeah, that was I was pretty nervous about that, actually, thinking, oh my goodness, yeah, I mean, I know what I said or didn't say, or I know what I meant,
Right.
but it really doesn't matter anymore. What I thought is what they heard.
Yeah. Talk to me
And
about that side of it, coming back and the board of directors. Like how did they handle that? I mean, what did that, I mean, obviously if I say boardroom, it's tongue in cheek, but what did that boardroom look like coming back?
well, everything was nice and easy at first. Oh, how you doing? Oh, I'm doing great. How was the trip? Oh, it was wonderful. How you guys been? All these types of things we would say anyway.
Right.
And but before we really got going, I said, "Look, I got to share this right now. I got to get this out." And there was some serious tone in the room, and they were just like, "What's going on?" They knew it was something, and I just explained. I said, I don't know what to say." I said, "But here's the situation." And I mean, we knew before I went there that he was going to take me to see this church, but not once did I ever say, "We're going to help you build this." But that's not how it translated. And and there was kind of a quietness in the room at first because everyone's looking at it, but we keep our monies compartmentalized, and we're never robbing Peter to pay Paul. If there was $4 million in the widows fund, we wouldn't take $1 out for the church.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's how we've always done things, and we figured that's just we're accountable that way, and so looking back, I think everyone was looking at a church fund that might have had $30 in it or something, and we're now expected to come up with about 4,000, and we just have absolutely no idea how this is going to occur. But we've learned through that process, Nathan, and others, that we used to get too fixated on the budget. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the balance sheet. I mean,
Sure. Sure.
it's a good measuring stick, but it can't get in the way of what the Holy Spirit is prompting you to do. And we have had so many occasions to where now it's just our go-to. If if this fund says zero and we think that God's calling us to do this, we've had an occasion where we needed in 2022 we needed $2,500 for school uniforms for 160 kids. We had we had absolutely nothing in the education fund, but we felt like God was calling us to do this. And it's actually gotten to the point where we will tell the pastors, God has called us to do this. We know He's going to provide. We don't know how, but we're obligated to this.
Mm.
And then that one occasion, before we could even start a fundraiser, because that's what we were going to do, just send out text messages or something. A check came in the mail for $2,500.
Wow. Wow.
With no announcements to anybody, and so our ministry faith, I guess, has grown from that church incident I was talking to you about, like, what are we going to do, to where that's just become the expected.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
it's exciting though.
Yeah. No, and that's so great to see, and it's great too because again, like you said, it can be it can almost be daunting sometimes, looking at the expense budget and looking at all, what's coming in, what's going out, and like you said, I mean, really, like there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, that helps an organization, that helps a business, that helps a ministry gauge where funds go, right? I mean, it helps you to be a steward of what you're spending and what's coming in. But it's so cool that you talk often about, the balance in this budget is zero, because that means that funds are coming in and they're going right back out for the ministry that God has intended for you. And I think that's important too, right? That uh, it can be difficult sometimes because you think about the concept of, on a personal level, you want savings and security, and you push that out into the business mindset, and realizing that the type of ministry that you're in, no, the money's supposed to go right back out. The money's supposed to go into these things. So that's neat to hear.
Yeah, we're very much, I guess, a grassroots organization. I mean, we kind of liken ourselves to that. We don't have overhead. We don't have a building. We don't have phone bills, electricity bills. I mean, we meet at each other's homes, or these days, since the pandemic, sometimes we have Zoom meetings, or we meet at Panera Bread, or wherever it is. Um, no one earns a salary. No one ever has. No one ever wants to.
Mm.
We know that God has always provided for us, and so I think, like you said, with the funds that come in, they really do go right back out. They may not go out immediately. As an example, if we were raising, let's say, I don't know, $1,000 for a well, and we received 1,500. Well, we would send 1,000 out, but 500 would stay in our wells fund until
The
the next
next
well.
project, yeah, the next project comes along, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so sometimes money's in there because of those reasons, but not. Um,
But you're not
but
racking up like $100,000 in an account somewhere. Like, well, when it comes along, we'll go ahead and send it out.
yeah, no, it's just the opposite. It's like, well, we have it now. We should send it. I mean, that's God gave it to us now. Let's just send it, unless it's something we know we need to raise the funds for, like a $3,000 project or something.
Right.
It all kind of depends on what the situation is, um, but yeah, God's been very faithful over
Mm.
the years, in ways that are just unimaginable,
Hmm.
quite honestly.
Yeah. No, that's super exciting to hear about, and just what God's doing and how He's moving through you, how He's moving through the ministry, and then how He's just really grown this from a reluctant missionary to go to India, to just faithfully listening to His call and being willing to serve people in South Asia. And so that's just so exciting. One of the things that Greg and I are doing next week, so at the time of this recording, it'll actually be 2 weeks. It'll be Halloween when these two other episodes releases. This has been Missions Month for us, and we've been focusing mostly on what we in the church call global partners. So people who are serving or have ministries in different areas around the world. And we started talking about my wife Joy and her brothers and a trip that she got to attend to Ghana, and kind of a family reuniting and ministry opportunities in Ghana. And then two friends of ours, global partners in the Philippines. And so, Mike, this is a great segue to talk to you, because you have this global portion of your ministry, but you also have what we call local. We have a local partner, Kevin Marr, who works with Young Life and serves as Young Life Director in Hartford County here in Maryland. And their goal and vision is to go into schools and minister to students in schools.
Oh, that's great.
And so, kind of this bridge, you have this global portion of your ministry, but you also have a local portion of the ministry as well. So talk to us about that.
Sure. Well, we're based out of Bowie, Maryland. And so, um, for many years, probably ever since we were formed, we've been supporting our local Bowie food pantry. And so, we figured as a Bowie-based ministry, that we wanted to, give back to our community in ways that that we could, that were feasible and kind of lined up with what we do internationally. There's very much a food connection in a lot of what we do.
Mm.
And so we're helping out in Bowie with that. Something new on the horizon this year. We're helping out at a local assisted living facility right here in Bowie, and to where we'll go in, say during the Christmas time, for those that live in the assisted living facility, and sing Christmas songs or do projects with them that build a puzzle with them, or just hang out with them, and just do whatever we can to bring love to them. And that's something that is really on our heart to do. Now, whenever there's been, we always hate using funds, for disaster relief, because we never want disasters to happen.
Right, right.
But there have been multiple occasions here in the United States, mainly like in the Florida or Louisiana or Houston, where there's been hurricanes,
Yeah.
where we've been able to assist. You know, um, you have to strike while the iron's hot with disaster relief, because the next disaster is right around the corner.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But we've feel that we need to help with that as we can. Um, and as far as education goes, we're helping two schools in Baltimore, um, right near the Middle River area. And so Glenmar Elementary, I believe it is, and
Mm.
Victory Villa, if you're familiar with those two schools.
Yep. Yep.
And so the last couple of years, we've been partnering with a church in that area, and raising funds so those children can get education supplies, or uh, whatever the needs are of the school that help the child in their educational growth.
Wow.
Um, there are two missionaries now that we're very excited about that we support. One, a young lady out of the Florida Keys. Um, she's involved in an organization where her outreach takes her to Kenya for camps for girls that have been subject to sex trafficking.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
and so she has, her outreach is over there in Kenya, and so being connected with her, broadens Building Hope's, you know, international scope to Africa,
Yeah.
even though we've never been there ourselves. But just being connected with her has allowed that to happen, and also her involvement in the Bahamas, um, and in Marathon, Florida, in the Keys, and her passion is for helping those that are, um, you know, um, girls that have been subject to the horrors of that type of thing.
Yeah.
Um, and also, there's a missionary in Pennsylvania that we support who's involved in local outreaches to colleges and in his area of the world, spreading the gospel. And so there's a lot that we feel that we need to do here at home, um, as well as overseas. I I forget who said this. I know that pastors are probably like musicians. We get this line, we don't know where we got it from.
Yeah.
When we're preaching a sermon or writing a song, and but I know there's a phrase that says, the light that shines the farthest shines the brightest at home,
Mm.
and and we feel that for us to be effective, anywhere, we need to be effective and reach out into our Jerusalem,
Yeah. Yeah.
and we just feel that's very critical, and so yeah, I guess ironically, just in the efforts of helping people domestically, their outreach has expanded our international
Yeah.
outreach to countries we may never go to.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's it's so exciting to to think about, and I mean, you and I being educators, that's already been a precedent that we've kind of had, right? The impact that you have in the moment, you never know what that will extend to and how far that will reach to down the road. But you have to be present and you have to be in the moment with that individual. And so the idea that you're present and in the moment locally, and but there's also the vision and the passion globally, is just so exciting, and great to hear you talk about this. One of the things that we've been doing is asking our missionaries who we've had on. Um, we've got a wide audience out there. How can they be praying for you personally? So you as a person, Mike, how can our people who listen be praying for you? But then also in regard to the ministry specific things that you have that our listeners can use, and when they think about this podcast, when they hear it, they can be like, oh yeah, I want to stop and pray for Mike in this area, or I want to pray for Building Hope Ministry in this area.
Well, I guess for me personally, Nathan, just um, I know it can sound cliche, but just continue prayers for my wife and myself, just as a family unit,
Mm.
for my extended family, to my kids, their families, um, that God would just continue to protect us,
Mm.
that He would continue to use us, for His services, and that our hearts would just be open to whatever that is.
Mm.
Because I know sometimes, even thinking of things like Building Hope, sometimes I have to be careful. Um, like, okay, this is what I'm involved in now. Like, is this what you still want me to do? Because
Mm.
after a while, it can become maybe a work, you know.
Yeah.
And so I I just pray that that people can pray for me, that I would have discernment, and that I would move as the Holy Spirit is guiding me to move and not move based on past endeavors.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, because that's just too easy to do.
Right.
And so, with that said, I'm in no way saying that, in no way should, well, we built one church, so that's enough,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but I just want to make sure that, that I'm, as close to the Holy Spirit's leading as I can be.
Sure, sure.
But for the ministry, one of our themes this year in our all throughout the calendar year, our Building Hope Ministries has had this passage from Matthew 9:37 and 38, where Jesus said to his disciples, "The harvest truly is plentiful, but the laborers are few. Therefore, pray the Lord of the harvest to send out laborers into his harvest." Mm. That has been our verse all of 2023. Mm. And we have come to, well, we've realized this for a while, but as an executive board, there's only 4 of us, and there's people that help us from time to time here and there, but we're pretty much like a decision making board, if you will. Like, this is what we feel God's calling us to do. Here's the funds we have. What do we do with this?
Yeah,
and we make all these decisions, but we can't be everywhere, at the same time. There's only so much time and space for 4 of us. And so we've been praying all year for the Lord to raise up people that would want to partner with us. And even to the extent of in this last quarter of the year, we're putting together like position descriptions for ministry volunteers, for administrative volunteers, marketing volunteers, people that want to would like to join us, with realizing that there's no pay.
Right.
But if they wanted to join, and be a part of what God has blessed us with, we would just welcome that with open arms. And we've actually, since we've had that as a focus, we've had people that have called us and said, "Hey, I'm having a fundraiser for Wells. How can I help?" And we haven't even asked these people. We don't even know who they are.
Yeah.
In some cases. And so, but we do need people to labor with us in the vineyard. So that's one prayer I would have for people that are praying for our ministry.
Yeah. No, that's fantastic. It's been so good talking to you, Mike. It's been like a little reunion here. Like I said, it's been a minute since we've sat down with one another and talked. A couple minutes since you've been on these Go to 11. So glad that we could hear from you and get an update and really, find out what's going on in other parts of the world, what God's doing locally and globally, and how we can come alongside and support through prayer. We'll go ahead and we'll put up the Building Hope Ministry website and link it to this. So if anybody's listening and this sounds like a ministry that you're interested in, you can go ahead and get a hold of Building Hope, and maybe out of this you'll get some new partners.
Well, we appreciate that. I appreciate the time, and always good to talk to you, Nathan.
Yeah, it's been a great time. Until the next time, we just rock the Casbah. Thank you again for listening to these Go to 11, an unchurchy conversation about everyday faith. Once again, please make sure you like, subscribe, and review on your favorite podcast platform. And if you ever find yourself in the Forest Hill, Maryland area, please feel free to stop by at 135 Industry Lane, and you can get all of our service times and information at christfc.org.
These Go to 11